Okay, this is a call to order of the second regular meeting for October for the Bridgeport Board of Education. Today's date is Monday, October 26, 2020. The time is noted as being 6:31 p.m. Madam Secretary, would you please, oh, sorry. We'll have the Pledge of Allegiance now. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen.
Okay, thank you. Madam Secretary, would you take the roll?
Sure. Miss Allen? Mr. Benahan?
Mr. Benahan, are you here?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm present. Sorry.
Okay. Mr. Lombard?
Here.
Miss Martinez?
Here.
Mr. Sokolovic?
Present.
Mr. Taylor? Mr. Hernan? Mr. Weldon?
Present?
Bobby Brown present.
Okay. That makes 6 of us, which makes a quorum. Do we have anyone signed up for public comment, Ms. Valier?
Mr. Weldon, the one person that did provide information that they wanted to speak, I've reached out to them and there was no response.
Okay.
So we'll have no one.
Okay. So we're going to move on to the next item, which is approval of board minutes. The first one being the October 13th, 2020 regular meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Martinez. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Brown. Are there any discussions or edits to be had? Okay. All in favor of approving the October 13th, 2020 regular meeting minutes signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Any abstentions? Passed unanimously. Next is the October 15th, 2020 special meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Martinez. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Mr. Benahan. Is there any discussion or edits to be made? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Are there any abstentions?
Abstain.
Mr. Lombard abstains. I don't have anything of substance to report this evening, so I'm just going to defer to committee reports. First one being Educational Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. Mr. Sokolovic.
Good evening, everybody. The Committee on Educational Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion met on October 19th, and the following was discussed. We discussed committee goals and objectives, which are the goal of the committee is to use data-driven information to apply an equity lens to the entire Bridgeport Public School System to identify any and all policies, procedures, programs, and/or services, and to seek out disparate impacts on any and all groups of students, staff, and parents. The committee will seek to rectify any issues found through discussion, research, by making referrals to other committees and focus groups, and ultimately make referrals to the full board for further action. The committee will also seek to promote initiatives and activities that promote unity amongst Bridgeport Public Schools' diverse student body, staff, and the greater Bridgeport Public School community. The goals for the remainder of 2020 will be to establish a standard of data presentation for ease of use and to create a list of possible issues to explore for 2020 and beyond. Also discussed was a need and a desire for board level training in cultural competencies and recognizing implicit and institutional biases in order to improve board level skills to better lead the district forward in these issues. The next meeting will be on November 16th at 6 p.m. Virtual.
Okay, thank you. Next to the facilities report, Mr. Illingworth is the chair of that committee. He's not present tonight. Are there any referrals for facilities? Okay. Next is finance. Mr. Sokolovic, do you have anything to report?
Yes, sir. The Finance Committee met on October 14th, 2020, and the following was discussed. The 2021 budget was updated. Some areas of financial concern to highlight is a loss of enrollment of about 800 students and the need of the district to be held harmless in the upcoming budget cycle. Continued pressure on the budget through increased disproportional portion of the budget being directed to the needed special education services. Also, an area of concern I'd like to highlight is a possible shortfall in revenue from nutrition services that may have an impact on the operating budget should it not be covered. Also discussed was a budget line timeline for 21-22 budget cycle and the need to bring together a meeting with our state delegation in order to help them better advocate for the district needs. Some areas of discussion should include the general increase to meet escalating costs, a need to favorably stabilize the percentages used to determine state reimbursements for special education services, and also the need to hold the district harmless for the drop in enrollment in the current budget cycle. I believe that the delegation may be able to find allies in the last two items, as they are not unique to Bridgeport Public Schools and are pervasive throughout the state. And I think the sooner we get our delegation together and meet, the sooner they can start advocating and putting together coalitions to push for these initiatives. So I would like to suggest that Mr. Testani, through you, Mr. Chair, get the delegation together for a meeting as soon as possible, especially before they go into session.
Okay.
Mr. Sokovic, Ms. Vickers from the mayor's office has begun to put some of that work together. She did send over a template to fill out in regards to legislative priorities and approximately what the cost would be based on the priorities. So that has been, Marlene and I did confer. We've created a list of priorities and approximate cost of those items and sent that over to her. She confirmed receipt of it. So we are beginning that process. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Any referrals? Okay. Before we move on, I just want to acknowledge that we have some members of the senior staff here. We have Dr. Jenkins, Dr. Black, Dr. Morgan, and Mr. Planas from Mr. Testani's staff. So I wanted to acknowledge their presence for the record. Next is the Governance Committee. Again, that's Mr. Illingworth's committee. Are there any referrals? Okay. Personnel Committee has not met or interviewed anyone. Are there any referrals for personnel?
Not at this time. We may have something in for your next meeting in about 2 weeks.
Okay. Students and families. That's going to be Mr. Benahan.
Yeah, I'm here. Student family, and our next meeting is going to be November 19th. That's the far, and I have information for now.
Okay. Any referrals? Teaching and Learning, Mr. Skolovic.
Okay, the Teaching and Learning Committee met on October, I forget the date, I'm sorry, I didn't put it, October 2020, and the following was discussed. Mr. Testani presented a district learning update. For the most part, things are going well with a few areas of concern. Highlighting the free internet offer from Optimum has had some delays due to no fault of our own, and some students are still resisting turning on their camera. Mr. Arnold provided a special education update with no serious issues to highlight that evening. Also discussed was a curriculum review of social studies and a cultural competency check. It was noted that there had not been a director of social studies for quite some time, and that the curriculum has not been reviewed in some time. Superintendent Testani is currently putting together a team to address and update the curriculum to provide a more culturally competent curriculum. Finally, Ms. Alicia Robinson provided an awesome update and provided a presentation of the arts curriculum with a focus on cultural competency, which I would like to say went beyond mere competency and exceeded it by leaps and bounds. The projects and lessons showed blew me away. The highlighted PD and other professional learning should serve as a template going forward for all departments as we navigate this new world that is finally ready to move forward in equity and diversity in education and society at large. The next meeting of the Teaching and Learning Committee will take place on November 17th, 2020, virtually.
Okay, thank you, sir. Are there any referrals? Okay, Mr. Benahan, you have your hand up?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry. Everything went so fast. I tried to mute to let you know. I want to go back about facility because I know I emailed Mr. Hernan some questions, and I know Mr. Hernan forwarded to Mr. Testani about IT department. I don't know if you can contact Mr. Hernan or Mr. Testani. Answer me some question I asked about IT department, and I'll really forward to Mr. Hernan. That's the one I put it in a refer from facility.
Thanks. Are you in a position to answer Mr. Testani or not?
Yeah, Mr. Testanio or Mr. Hernan, answer my email about some question I asked for IT department when they get it. I'm still waiting for all these answers.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
okay,
Yeah, Mr. Illingworth was going, I spoke to him when the email was sent. He was going to coordinate that for his next meeting. I don't know where we're at with the next meeting, and I will try to get with him tomorrow to see when that will be, and if not, I'll take the lead on that.
Thank you, Mr. Testani. Thank
You're
you,
welcome.
okay. Moving along, superintendent's report. Superintendent's report is being broken into two components, first being a general one, and the second being a COVID-19 update. Mr. Testani, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. So one of the things mentioned, as Mr. Skovic just mentioned, was Altice and Wi-Fi. I did get an update this morning. We have a technology team that meets every Monday morning, that consists of myself, Dr. Black, PJ Carafa from data management, Jeff Postolowski from IT, and from the business end of it, Mr. Pires. So we did get an update that Altice has begun to review the list that we submitted. A little over 2,000 families who asked for service free for 12 months of free service. And they are going through the list and qualifying those that will qualify. Just to give the board an update, they will not qualify anyone for the free service if they are a current Altice customer. So the 12 months of free service does not supplant anyone who is a current customer. And number two, when we met with Altice, I got the impression that we didn't ask at the time, but I think now looking back, anyone who is in arrears from prior subscriptions to Altice or Optimum, when it was under Optimum, and did not pay their bill and is still in collections, will not be approved for 12 months of free internet until they settle that bill up. So those are a couple of things that parents may voice on social media, as we know, but to be clear, no current customers will get free Wi-Fi from them for 12 months, and no one who is in collections with them and has not paid their bills from the past will be able to receive free Wi-Fi. The social studies team that Mr. Sokolovich mentioned from the teaching and learning had their initial meeting. We will have, it's an incredibly talented group of professionals. Dr. Black is also part of the committee, and we will have an update for the next teaching and learning committee in December. They have begun their work as a team. I have reached out and was at a conference last year. I heard a gentleman speak at the conference. Probably was the best presenter I've ever been in a conference in my entire career. Very dynamic, extremely talented man on equity, diversity, and cultural competence. So I have been in touch with his folks. I had an initial meeting with his, I guess, screener who meets with the individuals, whether it's a corporation or a school district that requests information or contact. You get a 30-minute meeting to get some answers to questions, and we'll get a proposal sent to us within the next 10 days. And a decision will be made on whether he would participate. But apparently, when he saw it was Bridgeport Public Schools, he has some familiarity with the area from being from New York City. He brought us to the front of the list. So I will be meeting with him once the proposal is received to kind of go over what we would be looking for our district. My thinking is that we would have training not only for the board, for administration, for staff, and then a special, that would be a two-part PD, full-day PDs. I'm going to hope that we'll be able to record it, so we'll be able to utilize that for years to come with any new staff and to review with staff as necessary. And then there'll be a separate session that would be for executive staff so they can work more closely with building level administrators. So just to give you guys an update on that. I think we're at as I mentioned to the individual today that I met with, we're at a critical point here in the Bridgeport Public Schools. I think this is extremely important to not only the staff to get the skill set, but to our students. Just given what they've been through in the last 8 months, I think they'll benefit greatly from some really good training and professional development. Like I said, I've never heard someone speak so dynamic, so engaging. As I said to her, I didn't even know how long he spoke for. It seemed like 5 minutes because you didn't want to stop listening. It was that good. So I'm interested to see what type of proposal given the information I provided, that he puts together for Bridgeport Public Schools. As you mentioned, this is a two-part, I guess it wouldn't be a superintendent's report in 2020 without COVID-19. So I'll just lump right into COVID-19, some of the other things that we're dealing with. Number one is we're trying to, and we're getting out new devices every day. We've pretty much in the last week and a half have serviced 10 schools. So our elementary schools now are in a much better position than they were. We have a couple more elementary schools to swap out some of the older devices for new devices, and we'll be ready at any given point if we need to transition to fully remote for any period of time, or when we begin our hybrid on November 30th. One of the things that I think is important to know is that we are trying to communicate our COVID-19 cases in a timely fashion with our schools. We've been extremely cautious in how we proceed forward whenever there's a case, overly cautious in most cases. I would say 9 out of 10, we go above and beyond the recommendation of the health department, just to make sure that everyone has a good comfort level with what's going on. Social media is obviously something we've talked about several times as a group, and how information is not always accurate, to say the least, but we are making decisions with health and safety of our students and our staff at the forefront. Not every decision is the same as some people would like, because not every situation is the same. So we're doing, I think, a really good job given the numbers. There's a lot of research that's been coming out by many different universities and health organizations that schools are safe to be, and probably the safest place for people to be. That's not always been the thought for some folks from the day that we announced that we would be opening, but we continue to be diligent. We continue to try to educate our staff and try to put them at a comfort level that they can come to work and engage with our students. That being said, as you've probably seen in the media, there is an uptick in cases across the state of Connecticut. Certain areas are getting more and more positive cases of COVID. In our immediate area, Norwalk seems to be, and Stanford are on the rise. This morning, just try to get an update from our health department on a daily basis on where Bridgeport is. We're trying to be proactive in getting information out to parents and everyone in the community to continue to be diligent. We do have the holidays coming up, and that we need to be extremely careful as we get to indoor gatherings that are non-essential, and to make sure we protect everyone. So that being said, we're monitoring closely. There has been a slight uptick, but not to the level that we see in some of our neighboring communities. But if we're not diligent, we could be in a red, as they say, state very quickly. That being said, we will be prepared to transition if we need to and pivot to any type of remote learning for any significant or short period of time. But I'm confident that, you know, with everyone's diligence, and we can continue to spread the word to educate folks and keep them focused with mitigating strategies, that we'll get to our November 30th date and be able to get through the winter months successfully. I'll take any questions right now as I just try to gather some other thoughts.
Okay, I'm going to just go around the room alphabetically. Ms. Brown, do you have any questions for Mr. Testani?
Sure. So we, as you know, we can't believe everything that's put online. Recently, a situation occurred, I guess, online, and people are putting out this negative information. One thing, if you can just clarify for those that are watching and paying attention, what is the procedure for teachers who have health issues when it comes to this COVID situation? I believe there's negative information out there, but I just want to make sure that we address it up front without causing any harm to anyone who may be involved. But for those teachers who are not able to work in the classroom due to health situations, what is the proper protocol for them, so that we can address that? And then another concern that was brought to my attention, and probably some of the other board members, I know that students are not allowed to wear any masks with any written information or graphics on it. It just explained that and the purpose of why we made this, or why you made this decision for that. But that's it.
Okay, so great. So in terms of teachers that have specific health-related issues, they would go through HR to apply for accommodations. We have offered ADA accommodations under the guidance of the American Disabilities Act to staff. Many have received, whether it's plexiglass, divider, or whatever they've asked for, limited exposure through not being, you know, assigned to lunch duty or things of that nature. There are some teachers that have severe health issues at this time, and they have either taken FMLA or taken a leave of absence. There's probably, I'm going to say, about a dozen of those who have serious health issues. We had some discussion with the union. Students are in class. Parents have decided to send those children to school to get in-person learning, to have a teacher then at home, and being able to decipher which teachers would teach from home and which could not, which were more severe, which were not, is something that we didn't get into. We strictly went by federal guidelines. The one thing that I really want to address is someone did send me the screenshot of what was posted regarding someone saying they applied for a sick bank and it was denied. The teacher that applied for a sick bank was looking to extend their maternity leave. Not that they are sick or dealing with any type of illness. They were on maternity leave, wanted to extend it. That is not something we've ever done, is provide sick banks. Those are for teachers that are dealing with severe health issues. We always approve those for teachers that may be going treatment for something like cancer. There was one who applied for a sick bank right before the year started because of a serious health condition for their 12-year-old child. I did approve that, of course. But the idea that somebody would get approved to extend a maternity leave, that's not the case. That's never been the case. And it would be unusual to say the least to do that now. We would probably then be doing that, 20, 25 times a year. And why now as opposed to last year, the year before? I'm not sure in the teacher's contract, I will look for you, but specifically in the administrator's contract, there is a provision that says you may extend your maternity leave with the approval of the superintendent without pay or benefits. So you cannot be paid, so you can't ask for a sick bank. So that clarifies that, because I think when I saw the post that was sent to me, it looked like the individual was one individual that had received chemotherapy and was not being allowed a sick bank to eat or live. I think those were the words used. That had to be two different posts, two different people, because no one who was receiving any sort of chemotherapy asked for a sick bank. It would have been granted. And in terms of the masks, students can have things on masks. HR thought it was best, and I agreed that we would probably leave anything political out of the.
Hello, Ms. Allen. Let the record reflect that Ms.
Hi,
Allen.
I can't get into the meeting.
You're in it now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So to alleviate any of the back and forth between staff and students, or students and students, we just made the blanket statement to leave politics out of it. They could have other things, and many of the kids do have some cute masks and creative masks, but we just felt that given the entire climate, to limit any type of disputes within the school buildings, that political messages would be something that we would not allow.
Okay.
I'm all set.
Okay. Ms. Allen, we are in the superintendent's report at this point. Mr. Testani was giving his update on COVID-19. And we're just going around the room to see if anyone has any questions for him. Do you have any questions for Mr. Testani?
Well, I'm just looking at the how one day we're in school, or 2 days we're in school, and a couple of other days we have to be out of school. So until you get the COVID or whatever, I don't know whatever he's made as a rule, but wouldn't we be better off letting the kids go on virtual learning until we decide or can get everything squared away in the schools?
That's a good question. I mean, the overwhelming number of I think folks really appreciate the way we've been handling each situation individually. We've had to close a couple of schools for 2 weeks. For the most part, it's been contained to either a classroom or a grade level or two. There are many schools that have not been impacted at all. When you look at the dashboard, we have 26 locations impacted, so that gives us 11 locations that have none. Most of them have had only one case. We've had a couple of schools that have had 2 or 3, but for the most part, it's been minor disruptions. I see, as you guys all get the notifications, that it's sporadic, and it's different at each location based on the individual and based on how much contact they had. We keep trying to be very diligent in telling staff not to congregate, especially at lunchtime. And when unnecessary, the adults have the options to socially distance from each other. Adults should be no problem at all. What's frustrating is when a staff member in a 3rd grade classroom has to be put on quarantine, and then because they're positive, and the class goes out on quarantine, for example, and then 5 teachers say, well, I had close contact with that individual because we had lunch together, or, we had a grade level meeting, and, we were close and we had our masks off. So those are the things we're trying to limit, so that the adults don't have to all go out on quarantine when there's one positive case.
That sounds great.
Okay.
Sounds like a plan.
Thank
Sounds
you.
like a plan.
Sounds like a plan.
Mr. Benahan, any questions?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question for Mr. Testani. One question and one comment. Mr. Testani, I just want to know, I know you really sent it to us and all the information about COVID-19, what's going on in each school and Bristol School, and we appreciate that. But I have a question for you and some concern. When you say the person is not in the school that date, when you say is not in the school, let's say I give a sample, October 1, is not in the school. But when that staff or whoever is the person report he got the COVID-19, when he find out he was really working in working in the school, and then he find out he got the virus, and then he reported, he do the protocol to what it is. I'm worried. I'm a little afraid that when you say, oh, the schools are gonna be cleaning or it's not gonna be closed because they've already found out the person already reported before that. So my question for you is, you don't think that person already had the virus before they find out and he was walking around the school or dealing with students or with parents and the staff? You don't think it was much better when you find out that the school has to be closed because, that person find out he got the virus, and, that's why I'm worried about it. And my second one is, when you can answer me at the same time, I know that today multicultural was something, I know you sent the email, but I have parents worry about the school never came back to drop the kids, and now they worry about that. So we want to know what happened this afternoon. They don't, the buses never drop the kids back, please. Thank you.
Okay, so when the notice goes out, we notify when we were informed, and then, like you said, the last time the individual was in the building. And when the health department nurse calls the individual, before we do anything, we get a copy of the results. So we know when the person tested. So from the time they tested, when they started feeling sick, if they were feeling sick, if they were not, if they were asymptomatic, you will see that if there's a time frame of more than 48 hours from the last time they were in the building, they're out of the transmission zone. So that's why we don't close the school. So we're very careful on dates and the information that's provided to us. A lot of times people have not been in school. The high school folks, especially because of the hybrid, they're only in 2 days a week. So if they haven't been in since Thursday and they weren't feeling well on Sunday night or Monday morning, and then they went for a test on Tuesday, we're in a better place than if they were in Thursday, started feeling sick on Friday, and went for a test on Saturday. So the dates are extremely important. If they had symptoms, they started having them is important. And that's why I don't think we've seen super spread at any individual school like we've seen in some of our neighboring towns where 15 or 14 people all at once in the same building have tested positive. And then the second point you made, if you can repeat that one. Oh, multicultural. All the students that were impacted, whether it was in the classroom or on the school bus with the individual, they were asked to be picked up by their parents today. They would not have been transported home on a bus.
All right, thank you, Mr. Testani. That's
You're
it,
welcome.
Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Lombard. Any questions?
Yes, thank you. Yes. Mr. Testani, you have more information about the internet connectivity availability for students. What challenges have there been in that area for people being able to perform remote learning? Because we're talking about 2,000 more families, and have there been any challenges presented for students being able to have connectivity?
We've had anything that's been brought to our attention and needed immediate attention, we've provided them with a hotspot that we currently have. We have some at our disposal that were provided to us. The State Department of Ed they were provided through Dalio. Since they made the agreement, the governor's office with Altice wanted to utilize that program first. But again, that program has restrictions. So for those families that may not qualify but have an immediate need, we do have the backup of the hotspots to provide to them to make sure that they can connect.
Okay, so there hasn't been any situations so far where people haven't been able to connect.
Initially, yeah, once we were made aware of it, the school is able, we provided every school with a supply of hotspots that they can provide to families.
All right, thank you.
You're
That's
welcome.
it.
Okay. Ms. Martinez, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I mean, not so much question. Well, I guess one. How has the accountability been around the students' attendance and the students attending if they are remote? Have you been able to keep a handle on that?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, initially, I think as we saw many students, especially our older students, were engaged in the remote component. I think some have begun to disengage, and we're working every day to try to re-engage those high school students, especially in the remote process. You know, I was on a call. We have a weekly call with the Southern Fairfield County Superintendent group. There's about 18 of us. Many of them are experiencing, not all, but many are starting to experience the same frustrations that students, more and more students are opting to switch from in-person to remote, because without that socialization and the number of mitigating strategies we have in place at the high school, it's not fun to come to school every day like it was before. It's more business-like, so they prefer to go and join their friends on remote. But the challenges with that then is that you have to be very diligent. You have to be disciplined. And some of the things that I've heard from the high school students is it's real easy just not to log on, or it's real easy to close my laptop than have to be in a school building and go to class. You know, I could maybe walk the halls for a little bit, but eventually an adult's going to get me and tell me go to class and I got to go back. So this is not an ideal situation, Ms. Martinez. I am extremely concerned. Friday, the Commissioner of Education joined our meeting. I expressed to him my concerns, not just today, not just next year, but for the next several years, that Bridgeport is going to need support financially to be able to provide students with what they're going to need to get caught up, not just academically, but social emotionally. And I'm not sure the state is prepared to do that, because it's not just going to be Bridgeport. It's going to be many school districts across this state. And, you know, Bridgeport needs to be at the front of the line. We got shortchanged for less funding from the Coronavirus Relief Fund than New Haven did. And New Haven still is remote. They have not opened their doors. They were not prepared. And it's unfortunate that as they get ready to try to prepare, the next wave of cases is hitting their community. And if they never open, they received all that funding. And what did they do with it? So Bridgeport needs to be at the front of the line. For elementary, there is some issues. If there's a morning and afternoon sign-on, in some schools, principals are concerned that the kids are signing on in the morning and they're not signing on in the afternoon. So they're being marked absent when they don't sign on in the afternoon. So that's problematic.
Yeah, right. Well, so I mean, it's a huge concern. I know my son, he was going hybrid. He was going remotely, and then he was going to Bassick in person. He said, "Mom, I want to switch just strictly remote, because when I'm in the classroom, the teacher is teaching in front of an iPad or in front of a tablet, and it's like, well, I might as well be on the other side of that tablet at home rather than being in the classroom and not feeling like they're teaching to me." So, and that's not, I mean, hey, there's no negative, that's not a negative statement. I just feel like that's what our kids have to deal with, right? So, he felt as though he would rather be on the other side of that tablet at home than in the classroom watching the teacher look at a tablet teaching. So it's awkward. It's awkward for both of them, I'm sure. We're in a pretty awkward situation. I thank you. I mean, your report shows me that, I mean, I didn't question it anyways. You've been on top of everything. I see the million emails we get. I read them, and there's no need to respond because you and your team are just on top of it, and I appreciate that. But if there's any need for maybe those who are more in touch with parents to like start for lack of a better word, a revolution to ensure these kids are in front of their tablets or their laptops, then maybe there's something we can do. Start a campaign of some sort, you know, or incentivize. I know that sounds really horrible because kids should be going to school, whether it's in front of a laptop or in person. But I really fear that, I mean, I don't know. I have fears around them not getting what they really need. And it's not like a teacher, you can't blame anyone. You can't blame anyone. It's hard. Some parents have multiple jobs. Some parents are not around. Some parents don't even know how to help their child. And some teachers could be overwhelmed. I mean, so anyway, let's just think about if this becomes a problem with attendance, with making sure that they don't shut their laptops off, or just holding these children accountable. Maybe we can do some inspirational campaign that will ensure that they're logging on. I mean, I don't know, but I don't know. You know, I don't know. But anyways, needless to say, I appreciate you and all your hard work. I have no other questions, and I thank you.
Thank you. I mean, it's not an ideal situation. Like you said, we're not going to sugarcoat it. I think everyone is kind of struggling with the balance of teaching the in-person and the remote. I don't think either group is getting what they would normally get if everybody was in full time. But I think teachers are doing as best a job as they can to balance the two. I appreciate the hard work of parents that are trying to support kids, especially little kids. I could not imagine having a first, second, or kindergartner on a remote tablet trying to work from home. I mean, that's just got to be the toughest thing ever. So we're going to get through this, one day at a time.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Who's this now?
Mr. Chair, it's me, Mr. Benahan.
Mr. Benahan.
I'm sorry. I want to go back and pick about Jessica, Mr. Testani said, and I agree with that because I can imagine, teachers teaching 20 kids, let's give an example, in online, and 10 students in class. It would be something like, I feel like the kids not giving education full time. It's like I give them half time, half full education, because it has to be very stressful. It has to be very stressful. A teacher having, both sides, so I'm going back what Jessica said, and I agree with that. I just want to let you know that for the record.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, may I comment on this also?
Oh, Mr. Lombard.
On the same conversation. So, Mr. Testani, are there any activities? I'm thinking of the people who are in school, who aren't feeling engaged or a reason to come. What's the point? It's like a business office. Are there any things that can be done to make it a more pleasurable school life experience?
Well, I think the teachers and the staff and the principals are trying to do the best they can. I think one of the challenges is, making sure the mitigation strategies are in place so that kids stay safe and staff stay safe. I think once we start to lose sight of that, it really causes a lot of concern from our staff members. Kids are going to the cafeteria, they're having lunch. I think the big part is, as more and more kids and, my colleagues in two of the neighboring towns echoed it. When you're not there in a classroom with 20 kids and there's only, 8 kids, it's not and they may not be your friends because your friends are in the other side of the alphabet. You say, I'll just go remote too. And I'm okay with that if the choice is being made and the commitment to remote. But some kids just don't have the discipline, and having that face-to-face contact keeps them focused on their work. And if they're special ed students, 504 students, English as a second language students, we really want to make sure that they're there so they can get their service, the supports that they need in order to be successful. Because, you know, they may need more than their best friend who doesn't need it and can go home, open the laptop and bang out work. Now, some of the feedbacks from some of the high school administrators especially say that there are kids that in the large comprehensive high school don't do well. And since we've gone remote, they're doing extremely well, and that we may want to consider some sort of small group for those that struggle with large settings to continue this down the road when we are returned back to full in-person school, that we allow those students that have a history of poor academic performance but are doing extremely well now to continue doing that if in certain cases. So, you know, those kids there are some that are thriving during this COVID remote option because they don't have all the other external factors that are impacting their ability to function in a large setting.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Brown?
is it okay if, is it okay, Mr. Testani? I was also just listening to what you were saying. I know that I've mentioned this before, but is there something we can do where we can allow outside partners to utilize the Teams platform to address different things that may interest the students? So if there's a portion in the class time where arts or something creative, because right now, like, I'm looking at the different ways that young people are tapping into using their media platforms, but finding creative ways to still keep them engaged, whether it's a different presenter, whether it's something that's going on in the community, that way they can stay engaged. Because we have Boys and Girls Village, we have all these different programs that can no longer come into the building anymore. So they're trying to find their creative way to use their platforms to still keep the students engaged, even if is during the classroom time. So, grandparents programs like that can, are willing to say, hey, we'll still do it virtually, but with the kids, it'll still be in a sensitive, so they're not sitting there hearing the teacher all day, every day. They get to see a different face virtually. And maybe there's a outside incentive award that they may receive from these programs, but just getting a different face in the classroom online. Since now that you're saying that we have more students choosing to do virtually, maybe this is where some of our outside partners can help level that out for you. This way we still keep the students somewhat engaged as to what's going on, even if it's Zumba, I don't know, something creative.
I think the outside agencies and community partners are great options for kids. I think we need them more than ever to participate outside of the school day, because a lot of the kids have nothing going on when school ends, classes are done, and now they're left up to their own devices from 2 p.m. All the way into the evening. So, one of the things that's always been a struggle, for me, is pulling kids out of class for different programs, and then after school our kids have nothing to participate in, and we wonder why we're losing them to the streets. It's because after school hours, during those critical times when parents may still be at work, they don't have anything to engage themselves in unless they play a sport, or if they're interested in a club or something at the school. They don't have really any other options. So trying to create a menu of opportunities would be a great way to give kids some choices from 2 o'clock to maybe 6 o'clock. We do have after school lighthouse at the elementary level, but once they get to high school, we have nothing except, so unfortunately, a lot of these programs want to operate during school hours because that's when, they want to work, they want to work normal hours, but we need something for kids to fill that gap from like 2 to 6 p.m. when parents may not be present because they're working to provide for the family.
Okay. Mr. Skolovic?
Yes, sir. I got maybe 4 or 5 questions. If we could take them one by one.
Okay.
Yeah. Some time ago, I attempted to make a referral to the facilities committee for the renaming of the Columbus School, and it seems the consensus was made. And Superintendent Testani, you took on responsibility to conduct a survey at Columbus School. Can I have a status update on that?
We started to talk about a survey. There was a few emails that I received from staff members that wanted to wait till everything kind of got settled in prior to putting something else out there. If I was thinking that around the report card time, we can survey parents to see if there's any appetite. I can do the staff survey first if you like. If that might be maybe something we can put out there, I can talk to Jeff maybe during the election day. Since it is a PD day, they can also do a quick survey either in the morning or in the afternoon, set some time up so they can all do it at the same block of time. And I'll get back to you with those results at our next meeting.
Okay, thank you. Next question. As I was looking up minutes and stuff, I was going through the meeting schedules, and I saw some suspension hearings. What's going on? How are we having suspensions during distance learning? I mean, oh wait, in person? Well, it's just.
You mean expulsion?
Yeah, I see suspend. It's listed as suspension hearing.
Yeah, it's an expulsion. I'm not sure what the offenses were for any students that may be referred. I can get a status update on what the outcome of those expulsion hearings are. I mean, there are kids still coming to the school building. There could be the possibility of weapons or narcotic sales. I'm not quite sure on what they were. I know they're being handled by the executive team.
Do we have any handle on a percentage, if it's up, down?
Way down, way down.
Way down proportionally?
Yes.
When you take into account in person? Okay.
Yes.
And okay, now onto some COVID related. The nutrition schedule just recently expanded. Do we have any numbers on those yet? And closing the gap of the meals?
The service numbers?
Yeah, the increased service at night.
At night,
from, was it 4 to 6?
Yep.
Do we have any people utilizing it so far, or is it too early to tell?
Too early to tell, but I will ask Mr. Garrity to send me, like he did in the summer, on those evenings, he can send me a daily or evening count, and I can forward those to the board.
All right, and final question. Are we still on track for the elementary schools going hybrid in November?
Right now, we're all set for it. I mean, depending on where we're at, we could always walk that back, but it seems like from all indications that I think it's a good idea that we stay the course.
Right. I believe it's an excellent idea. We've been ahead of the game in the beginning, ahead of the game in the middle. I know there's going to be probably some frustration and blowback for the 10,000 odd in-person students making the shift, but it's for the best. Our numbers are down because we've made the right decisions each step of the way, and I think the gut instinct is what needs to be stuck with, no matter the pressure that's brought to bear coming, that I could actually foresee coming in the future.
Yeah, and it's not right now, what we set forth is not really an extended period of time. It could turn out to be a little bit more, but I think getting ahead of the curve will give us more full-time in-person later on in the year, which will be much more beneficial than having this drawn out because we waited too long.
Thank you. That's all I have.
You're welcome.
Okay. That concludes the superintendent's report. We've got no old business items. We've got 4 new business items, action items. First being discussion and possible approval to execute memorandum of understanding between the Bridgeport Board of Education and the Bridgeport Housing Authority, doing business as Park City Communities, for usage of the Trumbull Gardens Computer Room as a satellite adult education location. Mr. Testani, I believe this is your item.
Yeah, just, real quick, it's, adult education has historically always had different satellite locations to be able to do more outreach to parents and families that may not be able to access adult ed during the day on Cassuth Street or in the evening at Central High School. So we've had historically different satellite locations across the city, whether it be at a church, inside a school building during the day, at the family resource centers. When Trumbull Gardens folks in the Housing Authority approached me for around October of last year about the possibility of offering something in Trumbull Gardens, I thought it was a great idea. I referred them to Mr. Denton, the director of the program. They've had several meetings, and given some of the COVID and some of the asks at the time that were not something that we would agree to from our end in terms of rental of space, we finally came to the agreement that they would provide the space, just like all the other locations we've had historically, and we would provide the instructor and supplies. So we finally gotten to that point, and they're ready to get started. I'm not sure the date that Mr. Denton has worked out with them, whether it would be in January at the next semester or just something in the interim to get going. But that's the gist of this MOU.
Okay. I'll go down the list. Ms. Allen, do you have any questions?
I have none right now.
Okay. Ms. Brown?
No questions.
Mr. Benahan? Mr. Lombard?
No questions.
Ms. Martinez? Any questions, Ms. Martinez? Okay. Mr. Sokolovic, any questions?
No questions.
No questions, I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. So in that event, I'm going to seek a motion to approve the execution of the memorandum of understanding between the Bridgeport Board of Education and Bridgeport Housing Authority for usage of the Trumbull Gardens Computer Room as a satellite adult education location. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Move.
Okay, moved by Ms. Allen. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Brown. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. Next item is discussion and possible approval to execute Addendum 1 to the student transportation contract with We Transport LLC. Mr. Testani?
Yes, sir. So this came out of the Contracts Committee as well. We've had some discussions prior to COVID and during the COVID with We Transport leadership to add an addendum to the current student transportation contract that would give them the responsibility of all the routing. We would still utilize the TransFinder software from our part in order to fill the buses, but they would be in charge of the routing. We would have final approval on all the routes and make sure that they are operating at maximum efficiency. This would take a lot off our plate here in the district. We would still have the managerial end, but they would then have to deal with a lot of the things that we currently deal with in terms of transportation issues. We would continue, as Ms. Siegel mentioned, at the beginning of the school year to operate a transportation hotline to gather any information from parents regarding the busing and any of the issues that may present themselves as they do at the beginning of the school year. But then they would all be referred to an individual that We Transport would add to their employee department to handle those requests and those issues that pop up. But it I think provides us with overall better service. It puts more accountability into the We Transport contract for them to provide top-notch service to the families of Bridgeport. And it also comes with some savings to the district that we can reallocate as we have in anticipation for years to come of the coordinator of school counseling and parent partnerships that Ms. Carly Roca-Reyes currently occupies. So we're looking to get them on board sometime in the spring, and they would prepare for full operation in this capacity at the end of the school year and during the summer months.
May I ask a question, please?
Ms. Allen?
I want to know, do we test the children before they get on the bus every morning?
No.
You have no facility, because I know that in some school systems, they have a monitor on the bus that checks the children before they get on the bus.
No, I mean, there is, different, some of the special ed buses, obviously, they have monitors. The regular school buses are running at very, very low capacity. The only thing, if they don't have a mask, they're provided with a mask as they enter onto the buses. The only situations where students then are not wearing masks on the bus, we have a handful that have extreme disabilities, and we've provided the drivers additional PPE to protect them against any coronavirus. But we do not give temperature checks or anything like that prior to getting on the bus.
Oh, okay. I know that in some systems and some certain circumstances, they give the youngsters a temperature check as they are boarding the bus.
That may be in much smaller districts where they have the capacity to do that. I think it's for the sake of efficiency, it's just not something that you could do in a district of our size and still run the routes efficiently.
Just asking a question.
No, understood. Ms. Brown, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Okay. Mr. Benahan?
Yes, I have a question too. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question for Mr. Testani. In that meeting about the contract, who attended that meeting, Mr. Testani? I'm sorry, I didn't make it because I have emergency to do, but I just want to know who attended that meeting.
The contracts committee was Mr. Weldon, Mr. Sokolovic, correct?
And Mr. Lombard.
And Mr. Lombard.
And Ms. Siegel and yourself.
Yeah.
And nobody else from the We Transportation, right? The department, nobody.
No, they did not participate.
All right, thank you. That's it, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Lombard, questions?
No questions.
Ms. Martinez, any questions?
Actually, forgive me, I missed some of what was stated. So can you just cover up and summarize what we may be questioning? I know it's about We Transport.
Okay.
Yeah, so we would be handing over the responsibility of creating the routes to We Transport, and then dealing with the issues that arise during the course of the year as a result of the routing and everything else. So late buses, things of that nature, it would go directly to them rather filter through.
And this is due to COVID?
No,
or this
no.
is just because it'll make it easier for the district?
I
mean, I don't want it to sound, that sounded wrong. I'm saying it'll be helpful to cut the middleman out, and they just deal with all that they need to do when it comes to managing anything when it comes to the routes, late buses and whatnot. I mean, there's no confusion around it. There's no questions. It sounds straightforward. It sounds like it makes sense to me.
Thank you.
I believe it's a two-pronged thing. It increases efficiency of the busing operation, and there is going to be a minor cost savings associated with it as well. Mr. Skolovic, do you have any questions?
No
Muted.
questions.
Okay. All right. So in that event, I am going to seek a motion to approve execution of Addendum 1 to the student transportation contract with We Transport LLC as presented by the superintendent. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Okay.
So moved.
I'm gonna call this one Ms. Martinez. Moved by Ms. Martinez. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Brown. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm staying.
And Mr. Benahan abstains. I'm just going to circle back to the previous item. I just had a really quick question about this satellite adult ed facility.
Yes.
Do you know how many students would make this feasible?
Well, initially,
Generally.
yeah, no, well, initially, we would like to register at least 15 students for a class,
Okay.
because there's always drop off in the adult
Sure.
ed world, based on the life, challenges that present themselves, work schedules, and things that change in the lives of some of our adults here in the community when they go back to school. So we want to start with 15 or more, so that
Okay.
if anyone drops, we've already spoken, made it clear that if they do not have enough to enroll, we would not offer a class there. But I think given the neighborhood and the density of that neighborhood, that we should be able to provide a service to help folks get their high school diploma or GED.
Okay. Okay, that was it. It was just, I wanted to ask before we got too far away from that.
And I know, yes, sir.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Benahan, you have a question?
Yes, I'm glad you say that, because I didn't have the chance to ask Mr. Testani. How much are gonna cost that for us, the cost?
Well, we pay the teacher and any of the supplies, the books or anything like that, or if they utilize the computer program, that's already been paid for, the Edgenuity program that we use for online classes. So it wouldn't cost us anything. It just costs an hourly rate for the teacher of $37.50 an hour, which is built into the adult ed budget. There's plenty of funding there that we need to spend from the state grant.
But we're not gonna be cost for a facility?
No, absolutely not. We will not pay for a facility when we do a satellite location. They have to provide the facility and we'll provide the instructor.
Thank you, Mr. Testani. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Welcome. And just a FYI to Mr. Sokolovic, Dr. Black responded that our expulsions are weapons related.
Okay. All right, so the next item is discussion and possible approval to issue a request for proposals for specialized substitute staff services for the period of March 2021 through 2024. Mr. Testani?
Yeah, so as discussed at the contracts committee, this is an RFP because our current 3-year contract that did not have any provisions for contract extensions beyond the 3 years is up with Delta T. Delta T provides substitute service for paraprofessional, non-certified staff. We do provide coverage for our pre-K paras, and also with any vacancies that we have and are unable to fill with paraprofessionals, Delta T steps in and provides that valuable service for us. So this is just to put out an RFP. I'm not sure what response we will get from any other companies that provide this service, but it's time to get it out there. The city charter requires us to, and we don't have any specialized reason that even if there was a 1-year contract extension provision to put this out to, not put this out to bid.
Okay. All right, I'm going to go down the list. Ms. Allen, do you have any questions?
No.
Ms. Brown?
No questions.
Benahan? Benahan? Okay. Mr. Lombard?
Where are you at,
No
Albert?
questions.
Okay. Ms. Martinez, any questions?
I actually do.
Okay.
So are we doing this because we need an increase? We need more. I thought we had a contract with Kelly. Are they not providing enough substitutes at this time? And we need to seek out another company that would.
No, Kelly Services provides us with substitute coverage for certified staff, teachers. Delta T had the contract for uncertified paraprofessionals. So that's this is the contract that's up. Kelly Services may try to acquire this component as well if it goes out to bid, but right now we have to put it out in order to secure another 3 years with for paraprofessional uncertified sub coverage.
Okay. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. All right. I have to. I don't know. Is anyway? I don't even want to ask that question. Forget it. How do you feel about this, Mr. Testani? Do you feel like this is something we should move forward with?
Well, we have to move forward because we're going to need when this contract expires in March, we're going to need a service to provide. If any paraprofessionals in the pre-K immediately need to be filled on a daily basis, we need somebody to have a pool of candidates to make those coverages happen. And then for any of the para vacancies that need to be covered, Delta T provides a valuable service with those folks as well. It would be a big undertaking to try to hire, process, and assign these folks internally. That's why we went out to contract it out many years ago for these services.
Right. And so even though they may be uncertified staff, is there any? I haven't seen. I'll be honest, I haven't seen what it looks like. I know is this a company we had issues with unprofessionalism with their staff members, like at the Harding High School event.
No, we haven't had any issues with the current provider, Delta T. They seem to send us extremely strong candidates. We've actually hired a number of those once their time with Delta T is completed.
Okay. Yeah, no, there was issues prior to your prior to your assignment as superintendent. So but I don't recall if it was Delta T. I thought it was, but it is what it is. It's a moot point. I just wanted to make sure that I know that we ensured there was some strong like sexual harassment situations in there and certain other language in their contract, and when they did hire some substitutes or staff members. But I'm okay with it.
My recollection is that a firm, I don't know if it was this firm or another firm that held this contract at one point, hired somebody who I guess was not legally allowed to work, or there was an issue where there was an issue between a sub and a student, and it came to be revealed that the individual had a background that was not able to be verified because they came from a country where that information was not readily available, and they had only been in the country a matter of weeks. Is this something like that? And I don't remember if that was this firm or another firm. I believe we've beefed up some insurance requirements and some background requirements, but with the understanding that some places you just can't get the information depending where you're talking about.
Yeah, so I didn't want to make an issue of it. I just wanted to ensure that I recalled us being very stringent with our requirements, and we
Yeah.
were going through it like with a fine-tooth comb. So like, I'm pretty sure we're on top of it. I just wanted to make sure. I just asked to see if that was the same company. And I didn't even realize that it was specific for professionals. So no, there's no issues. There's no issues.
Do you have any familiarity with this, Mr. Testani, or
I don't, and Ms. Siegel never brought this up, nor did Mr. Pires. So this might have been somewhere, some other firm, but I will double check. But the RFP will specifically make sure that we're covered as a district with all liability, and they follow, all the guidelines that we would normally would in hiring their folks.
Okay. So, Mr. Sokolovic, do you have anything to say?
No questions. No questions.
Okay.
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
You got a follow-up, Mr. Benahan?
Yes, I'll follow up. I just want to be sure. I know you say something, Mr. Chair, similar, but I want to be sure from Testani if that person is now certified and something happened, God forbid, never happened. One of the students or something like that in the classroom, who be in charge of who be cover any situation happen with that staff who is not certified? Will be BOE or the company?
Well, none of the paraprofessionals are certified. They're all uncertified staff, but we are covered and they are covered under their insurance.
Right.
And I just got clarification that the question in regarding the situation that you guys are speaking of occurred with Source for Teachers, not Kelly or Delta T.
Okay, so remember, we had Source for Teachers at one point. There was an issue with one of their people. It was addressed, but going forward, my understanding is that we made sure that insurance requirements were beefed up on the part of the contractor so that we are an additionally insured in the event that some sort of issue arises.
Correct. And paraprofessionals should not have the sole responsibility of being alone with classes of kids. There's very limited time that they are exposed to children without a certified staff member present.
All right, thank you, Mr. Testani.
Okay. So I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the issuance of an RFP for specialized substitute staff services for the period of March 2021 to 2024. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Made by Ms. Allen. Is there a second?
I second
Seconded
it.
by Mr. Benahan. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? And to be clear, once the selection committee reviews the responses to the RFP and decides who they want to make the award to, that will come back to us for a final approval. So we'll find out who the winner of this is going to be. The next item is discussion and possible approval to exercise option year 1 of the legal services contract with Bertram Moses, PC. Mr. Testani.
Yes, sir. As you all know, Bertram and Moses is our legal representation. We'll be running on the end of a 3-year contract with Bertram and Moses. We do have an option in that contract when it was executed 3 years ago for 2 one-year extensions. I think Bertram and Moses is doing excellent work for the Bridgeport Public Schools, and we have a great working relationship. I've spoken to the representatives there, and they are willing to stay on and work with us and not increase their fees by 1 penny. They will stay firm, and we do have a good price, and it's a 3-year-old price, so it's even better than it was 3 years ago. We have a bunch of outstanding issues that they're working with us on, so I think it's important we just stay and keep the continuity working with the folks at Bertram and Moses.
And this is, to be clear, the city attorney is the designated counsel for the Board of Education. And so they have to approve any outside counsel services that we retain. We retain Bircham and Moses primarily for their employment law expertise and their school law expertise. Those are areas that city attorney doesn't necessarily have staff that would be focused on those kinds of things. So that's why we have Bircham and Moses. So, but the city attorney does need to approve any arrangement with outside counsel. And they've been contacted and have indicated that as long as the district is happy with the services it's providing, they are not going to have an issue approving continuing the arrangement. So I'm going to go down the list to see if anyone has any questions. Ms. Allen, do you have any questions?
I have none at this time.
Okay. Ms. Brown?
No questions.
Mr. Benahan?
No, not question, no.
Okay. Mr. Lombard?
No questions.
Ms. Martinez?
No questions at this time.
Okay. Mr. Skolovic?
No questions.
Okay. So at this point, I'm going to seek a motion to approve the exercising of option year 1 of the district's legal services contract with Bircham Moses PC. Is there a motion to that
So
effect?
moved.
Moved by
So
Mr.
moved.
Sakalovic. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Allen. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Allen.
I second.
Mr. Benahan, second.
Have
All
a
in
good
favor?
night. Good night. Bye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Good night, everyone. God bless you all.
Good night. The time is noted as being 7:53 p.m. We are adjourned.
And thank you for tuning me into the meeting
Okay,
because I
night,
couldn't
everybody.
get in.
We're glad you were able to get in, Ms. Allen.
You're welcome, Miss
Thank
Allen.
you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.